Happy, beautiful day. It is Pete Cohen. It is a very special podcast. Well, every podcast that Pete Cohen does is a special podcast because he's doing it with you in mind. I believe in you. I believe that the best is yet to come. And right now, I am building a global revolution of 10 million people who have gone from living a life of chance to an extraordinary life by design. Welcome to the Mi365 podcast with me, Pete Cohen. See you after the theme tune. The big question today is, how are some people living extraordinary lives with an abundance of health, wealth, and happiness? What exactly are these people doing? The award-winning Mi365 podcast will give you the answers as you go from living a life by chance to an extraordinary life by design. Happy, beautiful day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. This is a special podcast for a few reasons. I've been in the podcast game for a very long time. Oh, by the way, this podcast is called Kickstart Your Life. Okay, that's what it's called, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And I don't know whether you would like to have a kickstart in your life, but let me just tell you very briefly what a kickstart actually is. Where does that word come from? Let's look at the etymology of that word. What does etymology mean? I don't know. Should we Google that? Should we look at the etymology of etymology? Well, etymology is the root of a word. Where does a word come from? And apparently the first time the word kickstart was used was in 1928 by motorcyclists. That lever that comes off the back of a bike, the side of a bike, you literally put all of your weight down to get the engine going, to create some movement, to create some energy for the bike to take you somewhere that you want to go, which is kind of like what I'm all about. The word coach, that comes from a coach and horses. You get on a motorbike, you get on a coach and horses because you are somewhere, and where do you want to go? Are you where you want to be in your life? Now, that's what we want to look at. I want to inspire you. I want to support you. We know a great life doesn't happen by chance. An extraordinary life happens by design. There's no shortcuts to this. There's no real hacks. I mean, you can't get away from the fact that there is something that you need to do if you want to create a life that you want to lead. And when I'm talking about that life, I'm talking about a life where you've got health, you've got energy, you've got relationships that are meaningful. Your life is moving in a direction where you're being fulfilled with your work, with your service. That doesn't happen just by chance. We've got to design it, because if you don't design it, I promise you, you will be in a very interesting place, which we'll look at. But why is this such an important podcast? Well, I don't know. We've probably done close to 300 episodes. And before I started doing this podcast, I was doing other podcasts, and I've been relentless because I'm driven by a mission, a vision to help people, because I know that I've been helped along the way. But what I wanted to tell you was, originally we called this podcast the Mi365 podcast. We did that for a long time. We then changed and pivoted because we thought we were doing the right thing. So we called it the Pete Cohen podcast. And now we're calling it the Mi365 podcast with Pete Cohen. Why? Well, quite simply, I know that I can't change your life, right? I know that you can do that. And yes, you need courage. And yes, of course, you need tools and tips and techniques and an environment where you can start making things happen. But ultimately, it's your life. And for me, Mi365 is about the Mi represents you, me. This is my life. And I want to 365 my life. I want to go to work on myself. And maybe that might mean 365 days of some work where you're installing new habits, because if you don't install new habits, then basically what we tend to do is we just tend to go around in circles and recreate the past. So this is all about Mi365, and I'm delighted to be here. I just really want you to know that whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, I am talking to you. This is a one-on-one. Recently I was asked about people coming on my podcast, and I said to the person who was asking me, I said, look, I don't mind doing that from time to time, but really that's not what I'm about. I just want to have a conversation with the people that follow me, and I want to give them something which they can go and use. But, there might be from time to time where we do get someone to come on because they've really got something of value. But I think sometimes we have to be careful where we get our information from. It's very easy to follow so many people. Just look how many followers you have or people you're following. How can you keep up with all of these people? It's like impossible. I think the biggest challenge we face is keeping up with ourselves. So I want to talk to you today, right now, about kickstarting your life. The Mi365 Kickstart. Okay, are you ready? Are you up for this? Let me just have a quick sip of my coffee. Very unprofessional, but hey, I'm in the business of inspiration. And I think that what's happened in the world right now, in fact, when this podcast goes out, or when you listen to it, I think I might be 50 years old. 50. Pete Cohen, 50. I still feel like a teenager. I still feel like I was 9 years old going down the road and asking at the paper shop, "Excuse me, how old do you have to be a paper boy?" 11. How old are you? 11. I got a paper round. I started being active, started earning money, started thinking differently. And I am who I am today because of many reasons. But many of us aren't where we are today because of many reasons, or perhaps a better way of looking at it is simply because of the choices that we make. So, are you where you want to be? Let's start off with this. We want to kickstart something. Let's just look at a few things first of all. So, this is the first thing I'd love you to think about. Imagine you could go back 5 years in time and you could look at where you are today. And you could ask yourself the question, is that where I wanted to be? Now, when I did this not long ago, I really had to look and say, you know what, I'm not. There's definitely a few things that I wanted 5 years ago that I don't have today. And these aren't material things, but they could be material things for you. See, the big three areas of our life that if we could wave the magic wand and give you a kickstart, most people would want to progress in what we call the big three. Your health and your energy, your relationships with your friends, your family, the people that you're closest to, and your work and your service. And, you look back. And my coach used to do this with me all the time. It was kind of like an audit, kind of looking at where we are right now, what's going on, what's good, what's not good, what do we want to change? That's what a coach does, right? So me as a coach, whether I'm working with you or working with a world champion of sport, it's like, okay, where are we? Where are we going? What has happened in the past? In fact, there's a situation that is quite common where athletes often come second in a major event. What that often does to them, they can often spiral all the way down, or it ignites something in them where they work harder than they've ever worked in their entire life. They make changes and they go to a place they've never gone before. Because ultimately, if we're not careful, what you think about that happened and what you wanted and where you are now, are you where you want to be? You're probably not. But if we don't have this conversation right now, then chances are if we fast forward into another 5 years, where will you be? Well, I would say the odds are stacked against you. I don't want the odds to be stacked against you, believe you me, but I can't do the work for you, but I can definitely point you in the right direction. And let's be honest here, with everything that's going on in the world right now, there's probably never been a more important time for us to reevaluate, rethink, refocus, because the whole world has changed. And many people don't want the world to go back to how it was before, because many people are realizing this pace of life is kind of easier, and maybe spending more time with people that they love and having to just slow down a little bit. And that's what I'd like you to do. Just take a moment to reflect on what I'm saying, because if you don't and you move forwards, you will recreate history. And if that's good for you, that's great. But I don't think you want that. I think you're here because there is something that you want. And if we start to think about what we want to kickstart, it's imperative that we have a vision of where we're going. So it's 2020 now. Where do you want to be in 2025? With your health, with your energy, with all of those things that really matter to you. Because this is a harsh way of looking at it, and I'll soften it a bit. you're either moving forwards into growth or moving back into safety. Or you're either growing or you're dying. And you go into the garden and you leave and you watch and you stay there for a few days, weeks, months. You'll just see that something starts to happen. Yep, the weeds take over. And before you know it, your garden is just full of weeds. And what are you going to do about it? Well, the easiest thing to do is do nothing, because it's too much like hard work, or you just got to start somewhere. And sometimes the first step is the hardest step to take. And that's why when we look at kickstarting, often people think the project, what they need to do, because maybe they're so overweight or they're so out of condition or things are so bad, they don't know where to start. And sometimes the first step is the hardest step. But let me tell you this, and this is again quite controversial, inspiration is for amateurs. Now, what I mean by that, or motivation is for amateurs, because most of us around the world, we just don't feel like doing something. So we won't do it, right? I don't feel like it. I'm a massive fan of inspiration, but I know inspiration only comes by you taking action. And the other day I was doing a webinar with a group of people I coach very closely, the Mi365 Elite Pro community, people that work with me and really get access much more closely to what they want and working with them. And one of them actually said, who's a functional medicine doctor, was saying, you know what, it is challenging because our natural state is to just not do anything. And it's such an interesting debate. And I really want you to think about this, because we don't want history to repeat itself. So we kind of need to lay some ground things out here, which is important. We're always fighting against ourselves. There's a part of us that wants to get out of bed, and there's a part of us that wants to stay where we are. There's a part of us that wants to exercise. There's a part of us that doesn't. There's a part of us that wants to be a better person, but there's just a part of us that just can't be asked. Why? Because your forefathers, this is how I look at it, they basically fought for you, right? So go back a long way back. They were hunter-gatherers. We're not hunter-gatherers anymore. We live a completely different life where you can just click and collect and things will be brought to you. You don't have to do very much. You can be very, very, very passive. That is the world that has been created, a passive world where people don't really have to strive for anything. And if you're striving for something, most people think you're a bit weird. Why would you be striving for that? Why not just stay where you are? In fact, often, I don't know whether you've ever experienced this, if you decide to change, often your friends will go, "What are you doing? What's wrong with you? This is what we do." No, that's what you did. And deep down, are you really happy? Are you really being who you're capable of being? You know, one of the most famous humanistic psychologists, I mention him a lot on our podcast, Abraham Maslow, he said what man can be, he must be. What he can be, he must be. And when we're settling, it can be nice, it can be comfortable. It's like if I said, "Hey, do you want a holiday?" "Yes, please." Well, probably right now you want a holiday because you can't have one at the moment. Depending when you're listening to this, maybe the whole COVID-19 would have just blown over by then. But if you went on holiday, how long would you want to go for? How long would it go until you got itchy feet and you went, a week, 2 weeks? I've got to do something. Because there's a part of us that wants to settle and there's a part of us that wants to grow. And the Greeks called it teleological. We need goals. We need to achieve things. And when we're not working on things that are important and meaningful, we're settling. We're just settling. And settling is nice if that's what you want to do. But ultimately, what are you here to do? And what do you want the legacy of your life to be? See, I think we all need a daily kickstart. I'd love to be a part of your journey where today, 2020, you're looking at your life and now you start to get 2020 vision and you think, okay, I don't want the past to repeat itself. You know, there are certain things I really, really want. How am I going to make that happen? There's no shortcuts to any of this. There's basically what I would say there are 7 steps, right? 7 steps to being unstoppable. Now that might sound like a book. 7 steps to be unstoppable every day. Okay, 5 days to change your life. And many of us are bought into these things. Many of us have thought that the result that we want is outside of ourselves. We're just one course away. We're one thing away for changing our life. I think it's the best way to change your life right now is just to wake up and go, okay, if I want to be unstoppable, these are the 7 things. Picture this as a pyramid. The basis of the pyramid is choices. You have to look at the choices that you're making. In fact, if there was a foundational level below that one, it would be under the ground. Just be aware. Just be aware. Wake up. Look at what's going on. Realizing that every day you're making choices that are moving you in a particular direction. And this is a power statement, right? Are you living for today or are you living for tomorrow today? I'm living for tomorrow today, recognizing that my choices today are going to affect my tomorrow. If you're just living for today, then, and giving into temptation, which is such an easy thing to do, we need to practice willpower, which is self-control. Because ultimately, if you keep living for today, I promise you, you won't have that many todays as you would like. And the last days of your life will be a repercussion in many cases of you kept living for today. Spending what you didn't have, eating what you didn't need to eat, thinking in ways that weren't servicing you really. Look, I don't know everybody in the world, but having done this work now for over 30 years of my life, it's like, whoa, what have you learnt, Pete? What have you become aware of? I've become aware that people are just in this constant habit of being a hero in the beginning. We want things. That word has been around for 2,500 years, being heroic in the beginning. And if you're a real hero, it's not just about you. Heroes are protectors. We should be looking to make ourselves better physically, mentally, emotionally, not just for us. It benefits the people around us. So the base of the pyramid is definitely the foundation under the ground, awareness, just being aware. The second is choices. What are the choices that I'm making? Where are those choices taking me? You don't have to analyze this. Just wake up to it. Just own it. And the next level is work. Yep, really sorry about that. People don't like that word. But work is effort for me. Who invented work? The Romans. Why? I'll just sip my coffee. Why did they invent work? Well, they got people to do the things they didn't want to do. Unfortunately, many of us have to do the things we don't really want to do or we don't feel like doing. We want the result of it. We want the feeling of, look what I did. The garden was a mess and I cleaned it up. Yeah, I did that. I didn't feel like exercising. I exercised. How do you feel after that? That's one of the greatest feelings, the feeling of accomplishment. So first is awareness under the ground. Choices, the next step. Work. And then what? Just work? It's like you join a gym, you go once, that's at it, done? No, it's repeat. That's the next step up. Repeat, 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 repeat. Then what? Routines. Routines, again, I'm not a massive fan of that word. It's too woolly. The better word for me is rituals. Even though the rebel in me doesn't like rituals, I don't like being told what to do. But I realize that it doesn't really matter what I like. It's just more about what I need to do because it's who I want to become, right? So routines next. And then what? What do you think comes next? You need to be consistent with that. Why? Because if you're not consistent with it, you're a hero in the beginning, and then before you know it, you cut corners. I know that when I was a personal trainer, I wasn't particularly good. Really, no one had taught me how to be a good personal trainer. I understood physiology, but I really didn't know what great personal trainers did. And I don't really like numbers. I like the big picture. I'm doing accounts and stuff like that, where you're drilling into really little specifics. That really is something that doesn't excite me. But again, I realized how important it was, especially when I was a personal trainer, because some people like that. But I also understood if I want to help them to get to it where it is that they wanted to go, I needed to track. I needed to help them. Hey guys, look at what you're doing. Look, you did that last week. This is what we're doing this week. This is where we're going. This is the goal. So you got to be consistent, and it's only through being consistent that momentum comes. And for me, momentum is still one of these steps. You got to choose momentum. It sounds a bit strange because you don't wake up today and say, right, momentum. But if you recognize, if I do these things, momentum keeps coming. As Newton said, an object in motion stays in motion. An object at rest stays at rest. And this is a really important point. By the way, the next step is to be unstoppable, which is also a choice. So awareness, choices, work, repeat, routines, consistent, momentum, unstoppable. Look, every time you go to bed, this is what my coach used to say to me. It's a miniature death, right? Then you wake up in the morning and it's time to go again. The object is at rest. If you don't get that object moving, what happens is it doesn't really move. It doesn't really go anywhere. You go into what some people call reacting mode. And again, I know I'm talking in cliches, but how you do everything is how you do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. A great life doesn't happen by chance, and many of us are leaving things to chance. Why? Because maybe we're fed up. We just don't feel like it. Biggest disease in the world right now isn't the COVID virus in my mind. It's definitely excuse-itis, inflammation of the excuse-making gland that many of us have, which is, I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like it because I associate pain to it. I don't feel like it because in my past, you know what, I've done that. Well, really? Well, if you haven't got the result that you want, maybe you need to do something different, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and 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 getting the same thing every single time. Look, there's a rebel in you, and many of you will rebel against what I'm saying, and that's absolutely fine. But some of you will go, this is exactly what I need to do. He's talking to me. I am talking to you, because you can have the best laid plans. Just like in The American Werewolf in London, which was a film which came out many years ago. I shouldn't have seen it. I was way too young. And these two American backpackers are in a pub on the Yorkshire Moors. And basically they're told to leave this pub. And the barman says, you just make sure you stick to the road. So they go out, they're having a laugh, not really thinking about anything. And then before they know it, they're off the path, they're on the grass. And of course they hear that, and it's the American werewolf, and one of them becomes a werewolf. Oh no, I've spoiled it for you. But they fell off the path. See, every day it's imperative, I believe, that we have to think about creating, because we can be creators or we can be reactors, and creating, if I said to you, hey, listen, I'm going to give you £1 million, but I'm only going to give you £1 million if you come and knock on my door every single day for a year. Just knock, and then that's the only thing you have to do at exactly 7 a.m. Not a minute before, not a minute after. If you do it for a year, after a year, I'll give you £1 million. How many of you would do that? Of course you would, because you can see maybe you wouldn't, but most people would, because that's a really good investment. See, we often don't realize the investments that we could make in ourselves. Because do you think if you knew you were going to get £1 million, how you felt about it wouldn't make any difference? You would think, I don't feel like knocking on his door today. That wouldn't come into the equation. I can't give you the value of investing in yourself, but you know what? Just take a moment to think about the next 5 years. And what you could do, and where would you start? And this is where we need to look at a couple of elements here. One of them is tracking. As I said, as a personal trainer, if I wasn't tracking what my clients were doing, how would they expect to get better? And I wanted to be the best personal trainer I could be. I wanted to have all these success stories of what I could show people. And the only reason those people had success is because they tracked. And anyone who's successful in any walk of life, they are journaling in some way, whether it's people like someone told me yesterday, Agatha Christie, kept a journal. Who else kept a journal? Winston Churchill, Leonardo da Vinci. What was the guy that sailed around the world? Obviously, they had to keep journals. Can you imagine if they didn't? Oh, where did we go? I can't remember. Darwin. He kept, journals and journals and journals. Now, often people don't feel like doing that, but if your life is worth living, it has to be worth recording. And the journal that we use, which I would recommend everyone to get, by the way, because you need something to check into. It's like our journal is based around gratitude, waking up every day, sitting down. Okay, what am I grateful for? Why? Why would you think about that? Well, we need to generate something inside you, And gratitude is an energy where things can start to flow. And if you don't believe me, just stop for a moment right now. Stop. And think about what you're grateful for in your life. Right now, what are you grateful for? But don't just think about it, feel it. When I think about the gratitude that I have for certain people, it makes me feel quite emotional. But if I don't allow myself to generate that type of feeling, my brain will go, well, God knows where it will go. It will go anywhere. Because our brains are powerful, but they're tricksters. They'll take us somewhere we don't want to go. And if you want to be like Captain's Log, Stargate, Star Trek, to boldly go where you've never gone before, surely you realize that every day you need to think about, well, what am I grateful for? It's a great way to start the day. What am I doing today? What's important? What would make a great day? And we have a great way of helping people track their energy, their health, which is called the Magnificence Seven. And again, you can go and check it out. In fact, go and check it out. Go and check out our journal. You don't have to buy one, but you need some form of tool to track. And a lot of people are into technology, which is great. These wearable techs. I think they're okay, but I prefer to actually write something down, old school. Go and check it out. It's the mi365.me/journal. mi365.me/journal. And use the promo word journal25 if you want to get one. And we'll use that as a special offer, and we'll ship that to you wherever you are. It's just a tool. We need tools. Whether you choose to use our journal or another one, do it. Look back one day and you'll realize how far you've come, and you realize what is going on and looking for evidence. Look, let's move this on. So you understand right now a few things. I don't know what your biggest takeaway has been so far, but to understand a kickstart is a term that was used in 1928 to make an engine go. You have an engine in you. How's it performing? Let's take you into the garage. Let's look at where you are. The last time we looked to you was 5 years ago. How's things going now? Are you where you want to be? If you want to go out and start performing again, we need to tune things up a little bit. We need to just look at a few things. What needs to be done differently? And if this is coming across a little bit firm to you, look, this is how I was. Sometimes I can be really nice and funny, but when I'm working with athletes and I look at you, you're an athlete of your own life. You're competing. What are you competing in? Well, you're competing in the game of life. Whose rules are you playing by? Maybe someone else's. Let's recreate the rules that you want to live your life by, okay? With your health and your energy. Because there's only one way, and it's your way. And I'm not here to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, because that's up to you. I'm just showing you, look, this is what works for a lot of people. It could work for you. So your health and energy, your relationships, your work, your service, your wealth, realizing there may be some things that you need to change, recognizing that I need to make some different choices here. I need to work at those choices. I need to repeat them. I need to build some routines. I need to have some consistency with those so that I have momentum and I become unstoppable. A great life, what? Yep. Yes, well said. It doesn't happen by, that's it. Happens by, that's it, design. So when we want to grow, we have to understand that nothing grows in your comfort zone. Hey, that's another cliche. What does that mean? See, we are settlers. So people all over the world have settled. And even when they seem to go traveling, many of them come back and settle somewhere. But if we're settling for the life we have, and we're not looking to grow, we only grow. Growth comes when we push the boundaries a little bit. So as a trainer, physical trainer, what most people, right? This is why you need a coach. Because if I trained you and you were lifting a weight, I'd say, right, go to it till it's really difficult. And you go to it, oh, it's a bit difficult. No, do another one. Oh God, no, another one. Go to failure. So you can't do another one. Why? Well, if you eat well and rest well, you'll get stronger. That's how your muscles, that's how they grow. When you create what's called homeostasis, your body then gets used to something else, but it has to be pushed, not pushed to the point of being stretched so that you snap. Like, hey, I need to get fit, so I'll go running every single day for 4 hours. You do that for one day, the next day you can't get up because you're in so much pain. It's hastening slowly in that growth zone. And that's why coaching is so important. But that's why journaling is so important, because you're just holding yourself accountable for what you're doing. And I've mentioned this before in other podcasts, that film WALL-E, where human beings have messed up the world completely, that they have to leave the planet, and there's a robot that's left, and this robot ends up being rescued by another robot, and they get onto a spaceship where all human beings are. Human beings have forgotten how to walk. They don't talk to each other, just look at a screen and eat fast food and drink soft drinks. That's what they do. And this robot is intelligent enough to try and wake people up to start doing things differently. Look, Mark Twain said, if you look at what's going on in the world and you're realizing that you're on the side of the majority, stop and reconsider what's going on. Because in America, is it any surprise that so many people are dying of this virus? I know I want to be careful about what I'm saying here, but the stats are showing that a very high number of people who are dying have underlying health conditions. I love America. I just love so many things about it. I'm not even going to go into it, but my God, I've never seen a place that is so unhealthy. So much malnutrition, and not just from people that are poor. I'm talking about from people that have got money, but they just eat food that has no nutrients in it. So they're suffering from malnutrition. 50% of Americans have a chronic health condition, and 97.3% of Americans are unhealthy by 4 basic measures. And most countries follow America. It's the most powerful country in the world. Even China now is becoming more like America in convenience, in this kind of commercial world that we live in, is buy things to make your life better. No, do things to make your life better. Do things every day to create your day. Does this make sense? You need to buy a ticket every single day, because if you wake up after your miniature death in the morning and you wake up and you don't look to create what? What needs to be done? What needs to be done that's going to put you on the right foot? And as we start to wrap this up, I really want you to think about, look, we've all got a few things in common. We are here to grow. We are here to advance. And I'm sure most of us want to leave this world in a better place than we came here in. And we've made a difference and impact in other people's lives. So doing this isn't just about you. It's about an example, you becoming an example to other people. And, we talk about, these things that need to be done, but they're much easier to be done where there's actually a vision of something that you're looking to create, right? Something that you want to go out and do, something you're inspired to do. Napoleon Hill talked about this many years ago in the 1930s, that he only reckoned that 2% of people had a burning desire of something they wanted to do, not a burning desire to have a cigarette or eat a sugary food or, something more than that, something that they had to create, do every single day. It's called visioneering. But if you think about your umbilical cord, but you haven't thought about that for a while. You were connected, right, to your mum, and many of you are still connected to your mum, and maybe your mum isn't even alive, but there is a strong bond. What if you could develop a cord between who you are now and the person that you're becoming? I will talk more about this as we move forwards, but ultimately, if an athlete doesn't identify with the person that they're being, or being the person they want to be, then they just go back to what is familiar to them. This is about transformation. And I know it's difficult to do this because many of us have been traumatized by our past, and many of us have habits which we've been doing for a long time. But if you have a big necessity to act, if you have something in front of you that you want to do, not just a happy project, which is great doing projects, but maybe a quest, an epic quest, as you become the hero on your own hero's journey, to write, direct, to produce, to act, to choose your supporting cast. Because that's what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen. And I encourage you to think about the part that you want to play. The avatar, as I was corrected yesterday by my colleague Kate. An avatar is describing the person. This kind of virtual world that people go into, which is just a shortcut to being that person. People live in that world. I don't even know what it's called, but I couldn't go there because to me, that's not where life is. Life is here right now for me, And I want to live life and inspire people like you. So take the time to think about the person that you want to become and start to think about building a cord towards that person. And every single day, it's like connecting to that person. Who am I becoming? That's when you create a new identity. An identity, that word means being. Who am I being? Practice being the person that you want to be, rather than coming to your end of your life and imagine meeting that person. Oh, I could have been that person. Yes, you could be that person. You could be that person today. Ultimately, my friends, we are in competition. We are competing with ourselves. To bring out the best in ourselves is one of the most beautiful things a human being can do. It's the greatest feeling, being able to look in the mirror and think, I'm proud of who you are and what you're doing. But to be able to do that on your own is difficult. When you look at anyone who's had great success in anything, look around and see who supported them. Now, I am here to support you. That's what this podcast is all about. Recently, it went to number 6 in the podcast charts for mental health, maybe because now more than ever, people are thinking. So let's summarize all of this. We're talking about kickstarting. Why do we want to kickstart? Oh, well, I don't know. Where are you mentally, physically, emotionally? Are you happy with where you are? Do you still have goals, dreams, and ambitions? Probably. What are you going to do about that? I have no idea because it's none of my business. It's your business. I'm in the business of helping people identify where they are and where they want to go. So with your health and your energy, where were you 5 years ago? And if you look forwards to today, are you where you wanted to be? Probably not. Are you going to do something about that? If you do, it's really important to recognize the 7 steps, or the 8th if you look at the one under the ground. You've got to become aware. You've got to look at my choices that I'm making. Could I make some different choices? Yeah, I could make that choice. I could get up a bit early. I could keep a journal. I could exercise. I could meditate. I could work at that. I could repeat it. I could develop routines. I could become consistent with it. I get momentum. I become unstoppable. And I recognize that I need to grow. I need to stretch myself just a little bit. That I'm in competition with myself, that every day I go to sleep, it's like a miniature death. I wake up in the morning. What am I going to do? I'm going to connect with the person that I'm becoming. There's some great examples of history of people that did this, but for me, one of the greatest ones is Jim Carrey, who wrote himself a check for $10 million when he wasn't really getting any acting roles at all. He was a massive fan of visioneering, using the creative part of brain to recognize the person he was becoming and then being that person every day, not just thinking about it, not doing anything. Daily method of operation. Develop the avatar. Become that person over time. Get yourself a coach. Get yourself into an environment where you can be supported by like-minded people. Thank you so much for listening to this really important podcast. I'm really grateful for you being here. Really, really grateful, because I know that many of you listen to this and you enjoy it. So feel free to let me know. How can I help you? What can I do for you? Don't just be passive, be active, connect. Come and join the Mi365 Kickstart Facebook group. It's absolutely free. It's a private Facebook group, and we will give you even more tips, tools, techniques. We broadcast every Tuesday at 4 p.m. In the UK and 7 a.m. on a Monday, and we do that for you. Thank you so much. You're amazing. Absolutely amazing. Happy, beautiful day. What was your biggest takeaway? Write it down. Go and tell someone. The best way to learn is to teach. Don't preach. Just tell someone. Thank you so much. Come and join the global revolution of 10 million people that have gone from a life of chance to an extraordinary life by design. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. And if you want to go from living a life by chance to an extraordinary life by design, so you have the health, wealth, and abundance that you're looking for, then make sure you join our Facebook group, Mi365 Kickstart, for additional tools, tips, techniques, and inspiration to help you go from where you are to where you want to be. Take care, and thanks for listening.